Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Teresa Scandifio. I'm Director of Adult Learning at TIFF, and it is my distinct pleasure to welcome you to In Conversation with Sarah Silverman. So a few reminders before we start. We ask that you please put your phones on silent. Silent, not vibrate, silent. Taking photos or recording video is not allowed at any point during the event. We have TIFF staff both recording and periscoping. We encourage you to tweet afterwards using the TIFF hashtag TIFF15. Tonight's In Conversation With is part of an ongoing series brought to you by TIFF's Adult Learning team. Our initiatives provide audiences with a platform and opportunities to watch, talk, and learn about classic and contemporary cinema through in-depth onstage conversations. Among other things, adult learning offerings include masterclasses and In Conversation With events with highly respected artists, filmmakers, and subject experts who inspire a deeper understanding of cinema, TV, and culture. Outside the festival, these events take place at our year-round home, TIFF Bell Lightbox, just up the street. It is now my great pleasure to introduce your host, Joanna Schneller, one of North America's leading freelance journalists specializing in entertainment features. Her cover stories have appeared in a variety of major magazines, including InStyle, Premiere, and Vanity Fair. She was a senior writer in the Los Angeles Bureau of GQ magazine from 1990 to 1994. Currently, she writes the weekly Fame Game column in the Globe and Mail, Canada's national newspaper. Please join me in welcoming our host, Joanna, to the stage.
Hi, everybody. I'm so happy to be here tonight with Sarah Silverman. She is just a scary, smart, vitally funny, and versatile performer with 2 Emmys on her shelf. I'm sure you've all watched the Sarah Silverman program. Raise your hands. Her special, We Are Miracles. Her first concert movie, Jesus is Magic. She just wrapped production on a movie that sounds fantastic with Judd Apatow and the Lonely Island guys. And she has a comedy pilot at HBO, which she is also executive producer for, incidentally. She starred in the Oscar-winning animated film Wreck-It Ralph. She played Seth Rogen's sister in Sarah Polley's Canadian drama Take This Waltz. And she has a great arc on the TV series Masters of Sex. Are you guys watching that this season? She's also huge on YouTube and has a new series there. Tonight, though, she's here at TIFF with a drama, I Smile Back, which screens tomorrow night at the Princess of Wales. She's the lead, and I'm telling you, I've seen it. She will knock you off your feet. It's the kind of performance that will make you realize, despite everything that she's already done, we have not seen the half of her. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce Sarah Silverman.
I told Johanna that I had a 4-minute bowing sequence when I come out.
We negotiated the 4 minutes backstage in agreement. So we're going to start right at the very beginning, if that's okay with you.
Okay.
What kind of a kid were you?
I guess perfect. I was described as having hair from the top of my head to the bottom of my back when I was born. Not long hair, attached, like a coat, a pelt. I think I was a good kid. I was trained at a very early age. I was addicted to shock humor at a very early age because my dad taught me swears. He was one of those hilarious dads that taught his, 2.5-year-old how to swear. And I learned that if I blurted out swear words in the middle of public places, I got wild approval from adults despite themselves, which is an extra excellent feeling, And it made me so excited, and it made my arms itch with glee, which is how I feel when I'm able to make people laugh. It's just, I don't know if that's something relatable at all, but you just like the feeling of being very happy and scratching your arms like a mad person. But I was just looking for more ways to shock people.
It's a shame you haven't found any, but we'll work on that later. Your dad had a store, right? And he used to do his own commercials for it?
Yes.
Tell everybody about that.
Hi, I'm Crazy Donald, Crazy Sophie's husband, or it was called Crazy Sophie's Factory Outlet. And I'm Crazy Donald. When I see the prices at the mall, I just want to vomit. Come to Crazy Sophie's when you care enough to buy the very best, but you're too cheap.
There's a reason that he taught you swears, obviously. He liked a
from
little bit of
showbiz
attention
family.
himself. Yeah. And so
People say there are Jews in New Hampshire. I said, well, I mean, New Hampshire needs retail too, you know.
So I read that your mom passed away recently. I'm sorry to hear that. But what was she like? Was she like a moderating influence on your dad, or was she right in there, Crazy Sophie in a way with her?
No, she also was in show business. She was the opposite of my father, where my dad had a very strong Boston/New England accent. My mother said like when and where, and so she went into the movie theater to complain about their recording. Remember, back in the old days, there were a recording, you know, thanks for calling Bedford Mall Cinemas, you know, whatever. And they go, do you want to do it? And she go, because she said, I can't understand a word he's saying. You know, I don't know what movies are playing. And they go, do you want to do it? And she went, well, okay. You know, so all growing up, my mom was the voice of, you know, I'd go to school and kids would go like, I talked to your mom this weekend, you know, because I'd call in and it would be her saying, thank you for calling Bedford Mall Cinemas 1, 2, 3, and 4, where all bargain matinees are only $2 Monday through Saturday. Now playing Annie, starring Aileen Quinn and Albert Finney.
So that's a tough act to follow, I would think. Okay, so you mentioned being a Jew in New Hampshire. Was that truly lonely? What was 70s New Hampshire like?
Well, I still had friends. They just weren't Jewish. I wasn't raised with any religion, and but we were Jewish, and I was darker and hairier than my friends, and I do think that it influenced a kind of like need that I wasn't able to articulate consciously, but I just I kind of knew to prove myself as non-threatening and affable to my friends' parents, you know, and be goofy, and I don't know, I you know, they would always go, are you from New York? And I'd be like, what's New York? I'm from here. And then I realized as an adult, that's the way people in New Hampshire think of Jews. They're from New York.
They're all from New York.
And then I moved to New York when I was 18, and I was like, I am from here.
You did your first stand-up at 17, is that right? Mm-hmm. And I understand you sang a little song. Do you remember what you sang?
Oh God, it was it was to the tune of Barbra Streisand's Memories, and it was Mammaries, and it was about not being flat-chested, because I developed very late, and so at 17 I still was pretty flat-chested, and then I got huge boobs, and I still was singing it, and the comedian was like, it doesn't make sense, that song, you have boobs.
You have to change the lyrics a little bit once you,
yeah. But,
so like body humor, there's a universal appeal there, right? Like you can always get a laugh with boob jokes, memory jokes. What do you think the secret of that, like why are we never come to the end of laughing at that stuff?
Well, do you mean like, are you including like poop jokes? Like you're talking about
yes.
base?
Please include poop jokes if you want.
I mean, because I think poop jokes are universal. It's almost like the sign language of comedy. There isn't anyone who's going to not laugh. You know, I mean, you know, it is true. It's like I can spend years crafting the smartest, most perfect joke, but a poop joke will trump it any day, you know?
And as a comedian, is that like, do you feel good about yourself when you go to a poop joke? Like, is it...
That seems like a leading question. Like, do you feel good about yourself when
Yeah.
you
No,
use
you know what I mean?
that
Like,
crutch?
is it something you keep in your back pocket, as it were, or is
No,
it,
I mean, I actually, it's funny because I don't, it's not like a well I go to, but it's what I laugh at. Like, it might not be what I do in my stand-up or it is. It's not like I have a rule against it, but you know, the thing that makes me die laughing is anybody's story of shitting their pants, or just honestly, like if I turn on America's Funniest Home Videos, I will cry laughing. I know that I'm supposed to be watching The Daily Show with Jon Stewart, but the heart wants what it wants. Though I loved him. I loved him very much too.
Now, you wrote a book in 2010, The Bedwetter, Stories of Courage, Redemption, and Pee, about your experience as a bedwetter and your struggle with depression as a teenager. So once you've written something like that, is there a kind of freedom that comes from that, like talking about the stuff that people don't normally talk about? Does it kind of make you ready to talk about anything? Does it sort of, what is that experience like?
Well, I think that comedy in general was very freeing for me. You know, I started stand-up when I was 17, and I stopped wetting the bed when I was 16. So it was so freeing to have this thing that my whole life I was positive would be my greatest shame and my biggest secret. And once that's exposed, and you know, I just kind of wake up and don't care and want to talk about it, and there's just an unbelievable freedom when you live your life as an open book, you know? I mean, you also probably risk being trite and boring ultimately, but it's wildly freeing, you know? And once you're a teenage bedwetter, trying stand-up comedy is not at all daunting. So it was, you know, I look back on it and I wouldn't be a child again. I wouldn't live my childhood over again for $1 zillion, but I'm glad that it happened because it informed all the good stuff in my life.
So you went to New York to go to NYU, but you didn't last long at NYU, is that right? Why did you drop out?
A few reasons. One, it's wildly expensive to go to a fancy college. I had a little bit of financial aid, but not much. And I was a drama major, which just feels like so much money to be a drama major. And I know that, you know, it is wonderful, but so I was working at a comedy club, passing out flyers on the corner of McDougal and 3rd from 4 p.m. to 2 a.m., 7 nights a week. So I've always been a good student, and mostly because I don't want to let down my teachers. I have that need to please, and I was sleeping during class. I couldn't keep my eyes open. I was pinching myself awake, and boy, I know that feeling of pinching yourself awake from going to sleepovers growing up. And it was torture falling asleep and getting yelled at and having disappointment from your teachers, like I'm in movement class falling asleep. And then, but I also decided I wanted to switch to arts and sciences because I loved my actual school. I mean, not that, I loved the actual academic classes. I wanted more to be able to draw upon for stand-up because that's what all I was really focused on at that time. And so I switched to the School of Arts and Sciences there, and then right before I started back, my dad called and he said, you don't need a degree for what you're trying to do. And he said, and he made a deal with me that if I dropped out, he would pay my rent and utilities, which was $350 a month plus probably another $100. For the next 3 years, as if it was my sophomore, junior, senior year. And then he saves tons of money, and I just get to focus on being a comedian, and it was great. It worked. We both ended up on the good end of the stick. Is that a word? Is that a phrase? Is my mouth still moving? So yeah, it was good.
So set the scene for us. What was New York like then? Who were you paying attention to, and what were you, who was inspiring you, and who did you see that like set your hair on fire?
Comedically? Yeah. Oh God. Everyone that was working at that time, let's see, Todd Barry and I would sit at the back of comedy clubs trying to get on, hoping someone would drop out and they'd need somebody. And Louis C.K. was there. He had just moved there from Boston. And this brilliant comedian, Mark Cohen, and Dave Attell, and boy, it was a whole sea of great Ray Romano. And this brilliant comedian, Mike Sweeney, that was, back in the days when the MC was the strongest comedian. And he would MC at the Comedy Cellar, and the other comics would come in just to watch him between the acts. And he now is the head writer at Conan. He's been there for years, but I miss him being a comedian. And it was a great high school class of comedians.
How were you in the clubs every single night? Were you waiting around for every show?
Yeah, while my other friends were going to parties or going out to the Limelight or whatever, Nell's, I had no interest in that. All I wanted to do was be out at the comedy clubs every night, and I passed out flyers for the first 2 years I lived in New York, and in exchange I could go on the open mic nights without bringing 2 people, which is how you get on open mic nights. And I lost my virginity to the MC of the open mic night at Boston Comedy Club. We're still very good friends.
Is he somewhere on a stage right now telling that story too?
He probably is. His name is Kevin Brennan, oldest brother of Neil Brennan, who is co-creator of The Chappelle Show and such.
So a lot of life-changing moments is what you're saying.
Basically. Yeah. I was a comedian when I lost my virginity. You don't get to leave that in the past. You still see him 25 years later like, hey, Kevin.
So you're watching all these other comedians and you're doing your own stuff. Did you see a place for yourself? Like, was there an idea that started to form in your head of like, there's an angle that isn't being covered here, or there's something I can do here that, like there's a spot for me if I can figure that spot out?
No, I've never plotted or planned anything in my life, and comedy as well. I never really stepped outside of it and thought about my place in it or anything. I've always been just too close to it, just kind of keeping my nose to the grindstone, I suppose. I mean, I've always talked about what's been on my mind. So when I was 19 and lost my virginity and I'm doing a lot of drugs, my whole act was drugs and sex. It was all I thought about. I mean, I had so much sex with so many people between 19 and 20 because I think I lost my virginity on the later side, and then it was just, I'm in New York City, and I'm like, what do his balls look like? What do his balls look like? What do his balls look like? I had to know. I mean, I had a backpack with a Noxzema in it so I could wash my face wherever I was.
And did it take you a long time to figure out that they all pretty much look the same?
They don't. No, they vary.
So you got on SNL, which must have seemed like the greatest thing in the world, but I understand that your experience there wasn't all that red hot. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? Or?
It was. I mean, I think idealistically, I was 22, so I was exactly the age I would have been if I graduated college. And it was an amazing, looking back, I don't know what Lorne Michaels saw in me. I was so not fully formed yet, And, but it was a great experience in a lot of ways. It's an unbelievable boot camp because you go in there with just so just dreaming and idealistic. And like, I remember saying, I can create something and it will be on TV that week. Like, that's amazing. And to a degree, that's completely true. That is how it works. But, I'm guessing I was terrible. I looked at a lot of, I never got a sketch on that went all the way to air. Either I would be a co-writer on a sketch, and I was actually very good for punch-up. That was where I shined the most, was punch-up of other, everybody else's stuff. But I really didn't get anything on that I wrote myself past dress rehearsal, and I like to think of it in that Larry David way of like, they didn't get him. He didn't get anything on when he wrote there. But I mean, I looked back at those sketches and they were terrible. They were very wide-eyed, but they're without, I think it's not a negative thing to look back at your younger self and think, oh, I was so naive and I wasn't as, to feel that your most vital self is now is ideal, so I'm not saddened by that thought. And my lack of success there, I lasted one season, was probably a gift ultimately, because the show didn't define me. I think for some people, it can really define them, and they can find themselves, either they fly or they're kind of lost after. And but it was a great, an indelible experience,
Yeah, and you're also doing that show rather than maybe your own, you know what I mean? You're sort of writing stuff for a thing rather than maybe writing it for yourself if you stay on there too long. So
yeah. But it was good because I shouldn't have been writing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna abandon ship on that.
And how soon after leaving SNL did you move to LA? Were they sort of close together, or is there a thing that prompted your move to LA?
Yeah, I felt I had exhausted all
the balls.
New York avenues. I'd seen all balls. It's like, I wonder what tanned balls look like. No. I actually went to LA to do stand-up or some sort of visit there. And this is how long ago it was. There was a party at Tale of the Pup for Jon Stewart's MTV talk show. And I went and I met this girl named Tracy Katsky, and she was like, tons of piercings and like a hippie hat and like smoking cigarettes, and I liked her right away. And she said, my roommate's moving out, you should move to LA. And I went, okay. And then I just moved to LA like a week later. I didn't really think about it. I really almost put almost no thought into any of the huge things I've done in my life.
Well, we're going to take a look right now at a clip from one of the first huge things. This is from your concert film, Jesus is Magic. So can we see the Jesus is Magic clip, please?
Who cares? Different religions, I guess the only time it's an issue, I suppose, would be like if you're having a baby, you got to figure out like how you want to raise your baby or whatever, which wouldn't even still not be an issue for us because we'd be honest, and just say, like, mommy is one of the chosen people, and daddy believes that Jesus is magic. That's not nice. No, Jesus is magic, because he turned water to wine, and I think he made the Statue of Liberty disappear in the 80s or something. But, the Jews got all, they didn't want, when that Jesus movie came out, the Jews didn't want people to see it because, they felt, everybody blames the Jews for killing Christ, and then the Jews try to pass it off on the Romans. I'm one of the few people that believes it was the blacks. I don't care. Good. I hope the Jews did kill Christ. I'd do it again. I'd fucking do it again in a second. If I hear his Birkenstocks clacking this way.
So nothing provocative there.
It's so funny. My
yeah.
hair was so healthy, so shiny.
So how early on did you discover the thrill of like rattling people, and discomforting them, and pushing them out of their comfort zone?
When I was about 3.
Yeah. So what is in it for you in that? Like, why do you like to do that?
It makes my arms itch with glee, and
But I guess I mean specifically that kind of like just, you know what I mean? Just pushing it so they think they know where you're going, and then you take them someplace. You know, like that discomforting.
I think that it's just the stuff I'm interested in. It's what makes me laugh. It's the stuff I think about a lot. And yeah, that sounds like such a boring answer. I'm sorry.
No. I just wondered.
It just
yeah.
isn't, it was never really calculated, but I also came from a home that had much fewer taboos than the rest of the world. So I was actually a little bit surprised by how like boo everyone around me was, because I came from a home of no boundaries, you know. So just was I was raised by wolves who said when and where. Wolves, yes. That was her joke. She quietly gave it to me.
Yet, you know, like here we sit in 2015, and I still read this about you all the time, like that it's more surprising that this stuff is coming out of the mouth of a woman, right? That it's somehow more taboo or more boundary pushing. Do you feel that's true? Are you tired of hearing that?
I think that maybe at one time it was true. I think maybe when that came out it may have been true. I think it's very much different now. I mean, we live in such a different landscape in terms of women and comedy. I mean, women run comedy. You know, I always get that question of like, you know, is it a hard being in such a boys' club? And I say, well, the only remnant left of that boys' club is that question everybody asks, because comedy's run by women. It's all Tina Fey and Amy Poehler and Chelsea Handler and Whitney Cummings and Chelsea Peretti and Tig Notaro and Jen Kirkman and Natasha Leggero, and yeah, I mean, it's a very different world, and it's great, you know. I mean, there was a big thing I did, maybe Montreal, and there weren't any women headlining the galas one year or something, and they said, and it was recently, and they said, you know, what do you say to that? I said, oh, they're busy. I'm sure there were many of them were asked. They're really busy, a lot of them. So it's not quite, you know, I looked at that Vanity Fair thing with all the talk show hosts, and they're all men, and it's like 11 men, but I just was like, I know I'm supposed to feel something about this, but I know for a fact at least somebody put women's faces on top of those men's faces. Like, what if it was these women instead, and they were different women comedians? And I was like, well, I know for a fact 4 of these women were asked to host TV shows. So, you know, it may not be as much of a woman's desire to be in you know, when you're a talk show host, you are in a position where you have to ask favors of people every day. I'm not comfortable with that at all. I don't even have a podcast because you have to ask people to be guests. I wrote a book. I would not ask people for blurbs, much to HarperCollins' chagrin. I made up blurbs. I wrote fake blurbs by fake people because... And to me, I'm probably the extreme of it. I should be able to, but I'm so uncomfortable with that. I would be a terrible talk show host if I needed to book guests.
But they would need you. You're forgetting about the power end of the equation, right?
What?
They would need you. They would come on your show
right,
voluntarily.
But that's a dynamic that I don't yearn for. Is they need me to promote their XYZ, and I need them to get it right. It's just that that's not an organic situation I'm into on a daily basis. It's hard work.
Yeah.
I like having brunch with friends.
Yeah.
But I love late night. I love watching late night. I love being a guest on late night.
Well, and you know,
when I need them to promote
when
my
you need them.
things.
When you blurb, yeah, when you need them. But in 2007, of course, you got your own show, the Sarah Silverman program. So we're going to take a little look at a clip from that, please, the Sarah Silverman program.
Hey there, stranger.
Oh my God, hi, what are you doing here?
I'm gonna report a crime.
You're kidding, what happened?
Someone stole my heart. You did. You stole my heart.
That's funny.
You're funny.
I'm confused.
You're confused.
You're right.
I'm right. Right about to tell you some pretty cool news. Guess who's a lesbian? This girl.
When did this happen?
I like to think it started in the womb, but if you're asking when I came out of the closet, it was shortly after meeting yourself.
Oh, really?
Yeah, really.
I don't know.
You don't know what, whether to go to your place or mine? I'm totally ready to les out.
Sarah, if I thought you were being serious, that'd be one thing. But you just don't strike me as gay. You strike me as a dabbler.
I'm a full-blooded dyke, and I say dyke because I'm like taking the word back from the man. Baby, I'm in it to win it. When I say it, I mean tit, and when I say tit, I mean your tit. Taro. That was an episode that I also remember. I think my sister Laura laughs at me, and I say, as a lesbian, I resent that laughter, and all laughter.
So your sister was on the show with you, right?
Yeah, Laura Silverman, my big sister who plays my little sister on the show. And I remember when I said, "You're gonna play my younger sister," and she said, "Thank you."
What was it like working with your sister?
It was awesome. It was really, really special to get to be with her every day. And I remember, I don't know if it's a good story, but I remember one day, and we were so close. Everyone who worked on that show, we all commiserate and think, is that gonna be the happiest time of our lives? Has it already happened? Because it was so fun, and we're just really working with your best friends. And one day, I was feeling low. I had been feeling kind of low, and I was shooting a bunch of the good nights, which were always with my dog, Duck, in bed, and I just kind of like, all of a sudden I couldn't talk because I realized I was gonna cry. Like I had been saving up a cry for like 8 days, and finally it was deciding to come out. And I was like, and then I just was crying, and I remember it was like, I was crying because I had this mantra in my head kept happening, which was, I don't have an emergency contact. And they said, oh, let's take 5, and everyone was so warm and sweet. And then the producer, Erin, said, do you want me to get Laura? She's in her dressing room. And I said, and Laura came, and we were lying in my pretend bed with my real dog and my real sister, and she just played with my hair and told me stories about when I was little, and I felt so much better, and it was just this like, such a feeling of home in this fake home on this black set, dark set, and but it was really lovely. It was nice working with her.
Couldn't she be your emergency contact?
Yeah, she is.
Yeah.
She's my emergency contact.
So you were mentioning that you didn't like asking favors for people, but you ran a show. Like, did you like being the boss?
Yeah, I felt very comfortable doing that.
What-
I really like getting to do my own thing, and I created it with a couple other guys, and it was a really tight writers' room. We had about 5 or 6 writers at any given time, and yeah, we're still very close, and yeah, it was, but it felt good. We had a really good organic method of deciding things, which was we would always go with the person who was most passionate,
Yeah. Yeah. That's,
Yeah, I mean, if I disagreed with someone, but they disagreed with so much more passion than me, like if I was just like, well, I like this way, and they're like, but this, because this, it'd always be like, yeah, okay, let's go with that. Let's go with
Do
that.
you know when a bit is working? Are you one of those people who like you say, your arms itch or something? Do you know when you're onto something, or does it take you a while do you have to work it?
I know when a bit is working, but I don't always know when a bit isn't working because I don't know if that's the same question, but I will try bits that don't go over and don't work, and I will just keep trying them for as long as until a friend says, "It's not funny. It's not funny. I don't know what you're going for." There's something in my head, and I know that if I just think of that integer or that tiny little like skeleton key that change it, sometimes just a word or a phrase or a pause can make something work, but then sometimes it's just not gonna happen, and I try things way too many times before I let them go.
One of your great tropes is the self-absorption of people and how hilarious people are when they're self-absorbed. What's your take on selfie culture?
Oh, boy, I should have a take on it. It's a little bit heartbreaking. I think if you really think of the root of it, of what it's saying, which is, and I'm no foreigner to, I have in low moments posted selfies with like trying to frame it in a way that isn't just like, I think I look pretty in this picture I took of myself. But I think it really is an epidemic in our world, which is, and coming from me, it's really ironic and arrogant and hypocritical, but it's that need to say I exist, to need to see some outside version of yourself to know that you exist. And I think the more we have it, the more we need it. But, it's a lot of times like a heckler, or say is someone who's just, whatever they're saying when they're yelling out, what they're saying is, I exist, see me. And by the way, so is the comedian, but the comedian is supposed to be there. But yeah, I remember listening to Howard Stern once, and he took a caller who was 18, and he was very nervous, and you could hear it from his voice that he was a really big fan and nervous, and sometimes when the way people handle that is they kind of are negging, you're okay, I've seen you before, whatever. So he called and he was kind of insulting to Howard, and you could hear that he was nervous and a fan. But Howard, he was just insulting him, and he goes, fuck you, and he goes and he disconnects him, he hangs up on him. And right before he hangs up on him, you hear him say, I exist. He said I exist. And I think that's when it first hit me, like that notion, but it was like, oh, so heartbreaking and beautiful and sad and real.
Oh, yeah, that's a moment to file away. So we're going to talk about Take This Waltz for a second. I would love to know how you and Sarah Polley got together to make this movie in the first place.
She amazingly thought of me for this role of Geraldine, and she only knew me from the Sarah Silverman program. She watched the Sarah Silverman program, and from that, she saw Geraldine, which is amazing because I always think of the Sarah Silverman program as I'm Bugs Bunny, and that she saw the potential. I think whenever somebody in show business can imagine you as something that they've never seen you do before, it's amazing because oddly, it's very rare, that people can envision you in a way that you haven't already done.
Yeah. Well, let's take a look at the clip then from Take This Waltz. Thanks.
I'll tell you what doesn't help me. Every book you read about it involves, people falling off the wagon 8 times. So, I'm good. I'm really good, but there's this looming, waiting to fail-ness.
You look so well.
I know. Really. I look in the mirror, I want to fuck myself. I honestly think I look better than before I had Tony. Thoughts?
You look amazing.
Thank you. It's kind of moment where you want to chime in real quick.
I don't think you're gonna fail.
Don't look at me like that. That all earnest, like, look like a baby deer. Next time I wake up in a pile of my own vomit, I'll have to feel guilty about you too.
Don't then. Wake up in a pile of your own vomit.
Doing my best. It'll be 10 months Tuesday.
That's great.
All right, enough. Get off me. Nobody's died. You're good news, you know that.
I always want to be like this.
So I hear what you're saying about, when someone gives you a chance to do something that you haven't done before, but I also think, like, what you do is hard, and why would anybody be surprised that you could do a different version of that hard thing? Do you hear what people are saying when they say, "Oh my God, Sarah Silverman in a drama"? Do you think, "Oh, get over it, of course I can," or do you think, "No, I hear what you're saying. It is a," do you know what I mean? It is a slight departure, or.
I always
really
want to
question.
celebrate people being impressed by me. So, I mean, maybe I might go like, yeah, I have this in me. Joan Rivers, her greatest sadness was that nobody saw her as an actress. And I always felt bad about that when she passed so young. I mean, for her. She was so vital at 81, and I feel like she had even a lot more still. But I also, my heart breaks for that she was always kind of angry about that, It's a hard way to live. But yeah, there's some, after we did this movie, Seth Rogen and I got that question a lot. How is it different to, it must be so different. And we both would just be like, well, no, we're it's the same. You're saying words honestly. But there are differences, especially with this, with I Smile Back, I wouldn't have scoffed at that question because it was different.
Yeah, we'll definitely get to that in a second, for sure.
Good.
Yeah. But first I wanted to ask you, you've got a great arc on Masters of Sex, as I said. Is there anything especially fun about going to work on that show for any reason?
Oh, are you saying that because my boyfriend's on it? Yeah, although we only had one, or we had a couple scenes this season actually together, but usually it would be unfortunate because when I would work would be the few times he was actually free to hang out. But yeah, it was cool. Yeah.
I read you said somewhere that it's a great way to ensure getting back on a show is to start
fucking the star.
Yeah.
That's always been my way.
Okay, that's an excellent segue to this next clip from the movie Wreck-It Ralph. Let's see that clip, please.
Hi, mister. Hello.
Oh, man, you scared me, kid. Nearly soiled myself.
What's your name?
Ralph. Wreck-It Ralph.
You're not from here, are you?
No, well, yeah. I mean, not from right in this area. I'm just doing some work here.
What kind of work?
There's some routine candy tree trimming. You probably want to stand back. In fact, this whole area is technically closed while we're trimming.
Who's we?
Candy tree department.
Where's everybody else?
Oh, it's just me today.
So you just meant like the royal we?
Yep. That's right.
Hey, are you a hobo?
No, I'm not a hobo. But I am busy, okay? So you go home.
What's that? Didn't hear you. Your breath is so bad it made my ears numb.
Listen, I try to be nice. You're mimicking
You're
me.
mimicking me.
Okay. That is rude, and this conversation is over.
I wouldn't grab that branch if I were you.
I'm from the candy tree department, so I know.
It's a double strike. Double stripes break. Doy.
Were you really considered too dirty to do a Disney movie? Was that a?
Not that I know of.
Oh, really? Oh, I read that somewhere that you had to, that there was a case to be made that Eddie Murphy had done kids movies, and
Well, no, yeah. When we were doing press, the question was always like, how could you be in a Disney movie? And then I would say, well, Eddie Murphy, who, if you've seen Delirious or Raw, you would ask the same question when he's in Shrek. But I mean, I can control my mouth. It's my mouth.
All right, let's talk about I Smile Back. Excuse me, if you don't mind. Tell everybody a little bit, because I'm not sure people have had a chance to see it yet, but there's like a hint to the story in the title itself, right? Can you just give us like a brief?
Oh my gosh. You'd think I would be able to nutshell it well by now, but let's see. It's a story of a woman who on paper might have it all. She doesn't have to work. She's married to a guy who loves her, and she has 2 amazing kids, and she lives in suburbia, and she's a drug addict, a self-medicating, depressed drug addict, and it works for her for an amount of time until it doesn't. And it's one person's story. It's based on a book. But I think it's actually a kind of hidden epidemic in suburbia. I think that it's not uncommon. I mean, gosh, if you watch any of the Real Housewives, you can see that pills and booze are a very heartbreaking survival skill of women who behave badly and in order to get the approval of off-camera producers going. So that's what it's about. And I think, what's interesting to me is that it's a movie, it's a character that how you feel about her, the amount of empathy or concern or sympathy or disdain you have for her, or total lack of empathy, all depends on the prism of your own life experience that you're seeing it through. And I always love that in a movie, when you can walk out and with whoever you're seeing it with and realize you've seen completely different movies. It's like siblings who realize as adults they've lived completely different childhoods, But there are going to be people who are disgusted by her and rightly think, gee, I know plenty of people who have had worse childhoods than her and have persevered with aplomb.
Is there a reason you wanted to tell this kind of story now, do you think? Is there something in particular that made you want to make this movie or tell this story now?
No, I had absolutely no part in it coming into my life or when it was actually able to be made. It was something that came to me. Amy Koppelman, who wrote the book, was driving down the West Side Highway and heard me on Howard Stern talking about my experience with depression, because I was promoting my book, The Bedwetter. And she really connected with it. And she, as she says, and here's her voice, I felt like her heart could understand my heart. Which is exactly how she sounds. She's a brilliant, Harvard-educated genius with the voice of Edith Bunker. You had it right now. Are you mad at me? Oh, phew.
All right, let's take a look at the clip from I Smile Back.
Only school buses allowed here, lady.
Since when?
You must not be reading your emails.
Mom.
It's okay, E. Is Frank here? Frank always lets me double park.
I'm sorry.
What's it say, Mom?
It says we have to park. Very good. Come on in. Susan. What is this?
Oh, it's to check the parent IDs. They sent them in the mail, part of that whole new security thing. Don't worry, I'll vouch for you.
ID? I had a crazy morning. I forgot it. I will bring it tomorrow, I promise.
Parent IDs are mandatory now. We mailed them out last weekend, sent an email.
I'll vouch for her.
Thank you.
Mom.
It's okay, E. I've been walking him to class for 2 years. Surely you can make an exception for one day.
If I make an exception for you, Mrs. Brooks, then I'm going to have to make one for everyone. Is that how we want to teach our children? I wouldn't think so. At this point in the year, Eli's familiar enough to get to his own classroom. He'll be fine.
I'll take Janie.
Okay.
I'm okay, Mom.
Are you sure? Wait, Janie, give me a kiss. Bye, baby. Ooh.
I'll see you later.
Kid's a fucking bitch. Is that how you want to raise your kids? Yeah, that's how I want to raise my kids. Thanks for the help, you fucking condescending.
The audio dropped cunt.
Yeah. So I feel like in watching these clips tonight, I mean, that's a pretty big evolution of a career there, really, when you see it all together like that, don't you think? It's like the amazing things that you've been able to...
That sounds pretty amazing.
When you're doing something... pretty amazing. When you're doing something like, and that is like the most lighthearted scene in the movie, I should warn you. So when you're doing something like that, do you take it home? Does it affect you? Do you have bad dreams? What's your...
I always scoffed at actors in interviews talking about this, but it did. It did. I comforted myself before going to shoot this by saying, between action and cut, it will be heavy, but we'll have a blast and it'll be fun. And it doesn't have to be the whole thing heavy. This character doesn't know she's in a drama, And but it was heavy. It was a lot of emotions pulled up to the surface and then pushed down. And so it was funny, in retrospect, because I'm looking at people who have been victims of me losing my shit over nothing about once a day and then going on an apology tour because of it, and I realized it was because I didn't have any place to put between cut and the next setup. I was just holding all these feelings. I was like a toddler who didn't know what to do with her feelings, and Lainey really lives in that anxiety. They say if you live in the past, it's depression, and if you live in the future of like, what if, it's anxiety, and that's why you're supposed to be in the moment. And ideally, if we're all very conscious lives, then we do that. But she lives almost exclusively in the future, in terror, in a horror movie of what if I ruin my kids? What if I smother them? What if I abandon them? What if I do what my father did to me? And that seems very self-deprecating, and we kind of tend to associate that with almost like a modesty, and it's not. It's self-obsession. There's no room for anything else, and it becomes a self-fulfilled prophecy. So you can have compassion for it, and you can absolutely have no compassion for it, and that's why I think it's interesting. I tried to play it as objectively as possible.
There's a scene, I won't spoil it for people, but there's a scene where your character does something inappropriate in her daughter's bedroom that is really exposing. Like, it's a very raw moment and a raw scene. Would you say that's kind of the farthest you've ever gone? Did you have to do anything in particular to get ready for that?
I actually had some things to draw on for that, and you know, scenes that are that extreme are, fun doesn't seem like the right word, but they were exciting. They were exhilarating. I could feel the blood pumping in my veins. So it was, I'm trying not to say fun because it's so dark, but it was exciting, you know. It was, that kind of challenge was exciting.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, I tried not to prepare too much for these scenes because it's so important to be in the moment of them, and also it was too scary, you know, and that's when I realized, you know, when I agreed to do the movie, it didn't occur to me that the movie would get made. You know, most movies don't get made, and so it was very easy for me to go, sure, yeah, thanks, I'll be in that. You can attach me to that or whatever. And a couple years later, it became, you know, I got an email saying, we're making the movie. And I remember I replied all and wrote, yay! Exclamation point, and pressed send. And then just, I was standing in my bathroom and I just kind of found myself suddenly in a ball on my bath mat of my bathroom going, what have I done? And then I was terrified and trembling and shaking and in a full panic attack thinking, I can't do this. And then I had this kind of epiphany that this is the state that Lainey exists in, and I know I can do it because I'm doing it right now.
That's funny. Yeah. We're going to look at one more piece of something that you're doing now, and then in a couple minutes, I promise, we're going to throw it open to questions from you guys. There'll be mics in the aisles, and they'll hand you the mic when it's your turn to ask the question. But for now, I've got you for a couple more minutes, if that's okay. Tell us what for people who don't know what Jash is and the YouTube channel that you're doing, can you just mention a little bit about what that is? And
Jash is just this weird comedy website kind of collective that I put together with, it wasn't my brainchild, but I co-put together with Reggie Watts, for one, who, if you don't know that name, Google it, because he's just mind-blowingly brilliant. Tim and Eric, who I'm sure you know, and Michael Cera. And it's just a weird, eclectic group of friends, and we came together, and we had to come up with a name for it, and we realized it doesn't matter what the name is, because eventually you'll just know it. Like, I remember when this is a real digression, but I remember like when the pilot for Friends came out, the script, and I remember dying laughing. I was like, Friends, they're calling it Friends. I mean, I thought that was the most lamest title, like, we're calling it Friends. Are you gonna audition for Friends? And now it's Friends. Like, you know, so it's like, it doesn't matter what a title is, you're just gonna associate it with what it becomes ultimately. So we said, let's just name it Josh. And then that was a website, so, and they wanted like $1 million for it. And we were like, no, let's just call it Jash. I don't know, we'll change a letter. And that was free. So there's nothing about it. It's just a name. And we just make any videos we want to make. Weird stuff.
Here's a clip of the weird stuff on Jash.
Voices of learning. Voices of wisdom.
You know, there are some tribes that don't even have a word for war. They just call it that thing we do with the stabbing and the killing.
Thankfulness.
Your funky hat lets me know that you're crazy.
My ass is a magic bullet, and my vagina's a sham wow.
Why does everything I smother die? Come. Join us.
So random. There are a bunch of those. I wanted to do something culty.
So is that the future? Is that just one more venue? Is that just one more place to work and get your stuff out there?
It's just another thing, and you know, it was started by our friend Daniel Kellison, who's kind of the head executive producer of it all, and we can just go to him if we have an idea, and he gets a set to us, or we go to a set, and we get to make it happen. And I've a lot of the political videos I've made since I've started, we've been able to use that crew, and it's just a nice kind of place to just do anything.
Are you doing something for this election? Will you be doing more political videos?
I don't know. Maybe it's far away. I mean, I never know. If I wake up with an idea, I go like, oh.
All right, this is the deep last wrap-up questions. So you're in your 40s now, and you really seem to be like owning.
That doesn't sound right.
I know, it's hard to believe.
I'm only little. I said to Michael, I was like, how can I be 44 and I talk like this? It's not possible. And then I remember asking him, I go, are we gonna grow old together? And he went, we are old together. Like, oh.
But do you feel like you own your work more, know yourself more? Like what are you liking about this time? What are you glad that you know now?
Oh yeah, I really do. Am I excited about my skin being as loose as it's ever been? No, I can feel my face falling off of my face, but such is life. I'm smarter, I'm braver, and I know the most I've ever known, and I'm definitely more confident in myself. Right?
Well, thank you for this very much. It's been great, and we're going to let these guys take it over now. So I guess, do we turn the lights up? Yeah.
Shirt is very
Keep your hands up,
stretched
then
out.
people with microphones will come to you. Okay, so this one first?
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad there are questions. Sometimes there aren't any. That must be possible.
Hi.
Hi.
I was just wondering, you were talking about before how there was those bits where that you could just never get to be as funny as you wanted them or anything like that, and you would have to get friends to tell you stop. Were there any that were really not working, but you just found that thing that brought it together and ended up being a favorite of yours or something like that?
That's such a great question, and I know that I have good answers for it. Oh, and I'll probably think of them later tonight. That's such a good question. What did I just fix with just a word? So many things. I can see someone sleeping. Oh no, he woke up. He woke up. I'm sorry, I'm gonna think about that. Maybe something will come up to me, but I.
Okay. Yep.
Okay, sorry. So this is coming from Twitter via Periscope. And the question is, which project are you most proud of and why?
Oh, gosh. What project am I most proud of and why? Lots of things for lots of reasons. Because I'm always kind of most into the last thing I did, because it's the most recent thing and I'm excited about it. But, the Sarah Silverman program is always going to be something that I love, because it involves all the people I love, so many people that are the biggest parts of my life, and it was something that felt very new, and I loved it. I loved all the elements of it, and writing it was at least one giant belly laugh a day, and it was really special. But there were a lot of, so that's it. That's Periscope. It's the future of film and art.
Yeah, it's being live streamed, right there.
That's a very Heil-ish.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you're young and adorable and delicious.
But we do have somebody with a mic in the back, right? Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
There you go.
Hi, my name is Jimmy Macris, and I was born and raised in Toronto, and I was wondering if you would like to see what Toronto balls look like.
100% yes.
My real question is, it's kind of generic.
Okay.
I'll,
Wasn't a real offer.
I'll wait after the show.
No, it would have to be now. And
My
on
real
Periscope.
question is, it's kind of generic, but what's your most memorable moment in show business and why?
Oh my God. What is my most memorable moment in show business and why? Oh my God, my brain's gonna explode. I wanna give you a great answer.
The time the guy in the audience in Toronto showed you his balls, obviously.
That would probably be it. That would be when I was in Toronto, and a stranger showed me his big, giant, luscious, furry, low-hanging, but still young, just heavy balls. Thank you for that. You've given me a lot of good ones.
Who's got the mic back there? Yep.
Hey, how's it going? There seems to be a bit of a rush lately to get offended by things, and Seinfeld has even said that he won't play colleges and things like that anymore because people are so easily offended, and it can turn on you very easily. You're obviously known for sort of pushing the envelope. Does that play in your mind at all? Is it a concern when you're doing new bits or anything like that?
No, that's a real gray area for me, because on one hand, I learned early on not to defend my material, that there are going to be people that are offended by anything I say, and I have to just kind of go with the guide of my own gut and heart and stomach. And but on the other hand, I think if you look at history, students tend to be on the right side of history. And that, to a degree, it is important to change with the times. And rolling your eyes and saying kids are too PC might have truth to it, and might also be a sign that you're getting old. Years ago, there are things in Jesus' Magic I wouldn't do today, because in the context of the world as it is now, it would be less absurdist, racial jokes that were just being absurd and me being the idiot, has less charm in a world where we're all very aware that black people, white cops are killing black teenagers on a daily basis. And I think I've argued years ago saying, I say gay because I'm from Boston. I just say gay like that's so lame, like that's so gay. It doesn't have to do with homosexuals. I have gay friends. I just say gay. And then all of a sudden I felt myself and realized I was the guy saying, I say colored. We say colored. I have colored friends. And that it doesn't take much to change with the times, and that it's important to change with the times. So it's a very gray area. If I had a problem with colleges at all, it would be performing to a sea of cell phones. And comedy is about connection, and it just sucks when you're opening your heart and you're doing comedy for a sea of empty vessels through which Facebook expresses itself. There he is, young Hitler. Young Jewish Hitler.
Thank you. Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
You're right about the arms. Okay, this is not as serious a question, but how does it feel to all of a sudden, well, maybe not all of a sudden, be just like the Beatles of comedy combined?
First of all, I'm in love with you, and I will wait for you.
Thanks.
It feels very good. I'm the Beatles like now, but I've had a very long career where I've been, it's like Louis C.K. was this overnight success that took 30 years, and it's nice to be a comedian and have little successes and little tent poles of
strides in your career a little bit at a time, and people discover you at all different times. You know, there are people that know me from a long time ago. There are people who only know me from Monk. You know, like it's neat to just kind of get to do all sorts of things, and the key to that is to keep your overhead very low, and be able to be free to do anything you want.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And my dad says hi for some reason.
Well, your dad is my key demographic. You are a young Seth Rogen, if I've ever seen one.
Hey, how's it going? This might be kind of obscure, but I know you from Mr. Show. And I'm curious if you can talk about what it was like to work on that.
Absolutely. That girl, Tracy Katsky, the smoking hippie girl who said, you can move into my roommate's room, was one of the early producers of the live show of Mr. Show. She was the kid who got everything together for their live shows, and she and I knew Bob and David through comedy. Bob was a Boston comic. David Cross was a Boston comic, and Bob I had met briefly, but I really got to know them through her. And we were also roommates with Mary Lynn Rice Cub, who lived in our living room floor. And we lived together for almost 4 years, the three of us, and she was on Mr. Show. And we were kind of a group of comedians. Let's see, Jay Johnston and Paul F. Tompkins were a comedy team. And they wrote for the show. Scott Aukerman and B.J. Porter were a comedy team, and they wrote for the show. And now you know Scott Aukerman from Comedy Bang Bang. And so it was this way. Brian Posehn wrote for the show and was on the show, Karen Kilgariff. And we were a gang that all hung out. Jack Black, I remember when he was dating Kathy Griffin. And he was just started doing Tenacious D with Kyle Gass, and it was all kind of the same community. We would hang out at this bar that was pretty much just open for us, where the bartender was married to a woman who ended up being one of the, was a head writer of many comedy shows from then on. It was like a real time. They had started what became alternative comedy, David and Bob and Janine Garofalo, a lot of offshoot from the Ben Stiller show. So getting to be a part of Mr. Show was huge for me. It was so exciting and so fun, and it felt like we were a part of like a moment in time, and we were. I get to say we, but it was them, and I got to tag along.
Question here.
Hey, Sarah, right over here. Right here. I just wanted to, first of all, commend you on how great your performance was last year on the Howard Stern Birthday Bash.
Thank you.
You did a duo with the great Natalie Maines. I'll pause for applause.
It was a song just for super fans, because if you heard the lyrics and didn't know the stories of the show, it's horrifying.
Well, having said that, I think a lot of super fans of the Howard Stern show would say that you're a part of the Howard Stern universe or the Howard Stern family. What does it mean as a comedian to have a relationship with the show like that? And just second part to this question, now that Eric the actor has passed, who's your favorite whackbacker? I exist.
There's so much humanity to the Howard Stern show. If you're only a casual listener, you might not get like the sense of family it has. There are things that Howard might say I don't always agree with, but I love you know his soul, and to see him change. As a super fan, to get to be someone who's on the show is like crazy, and so exciting, to have loved him before everyone loved him, and it was a conceit that he's the greatest interviewer, and stuff is cool, and it's also how I got this part in I Smile Back, because Amy Koppelman was driving on the West Side Highway and heard me on the Howard Stern show. So it's been great luck for me, but it is also, I love seeing, it's very exciting when you get to see somebody change. And I think when you listen to Howard from the 80s and 90s and you listen to him now, you really see the difference
this is a man who has gone through enormous growth, and because of it, has taken a lot of listeners that would otherwise not be as open-minded and open to change, and has probably been responsible for the growth of a lot of people who were angry, closed-minded people like he was at the very beginning, and blossomed because of his ability to change through therapy and time and happiness, and so it's neat to witness that and to know all these people, this family of people that have been together forever, Robin and Gary and Fred and the whole universe of the Howard Stern. And who's my favorite whack packer? I love Wendy the Slow Adult, and I'm glad that they changed her name because it didn't go well with the times. It was upsetting. And I love, who's the guy who says "it is" at the end of everything? Bigfoot, I like. Yeah. And I have a weird fascination with Tan Mom, who he gives the same attention in an interview to someone like Barbara Walters or Paul McCartney as he does to Tan Mom, the woman only famous for heinously tanning her 6-year-old daughter. And I've actually found a way to love her in an odd way. And I like that he calls her husband Tan Dad. Okay.
Yep, here. Hi, I'm Sarah, too.
Hi, Sarah, too. I'm
Hi.
Sarah 1.
I guess my question would just be, do you have any pieces of advice or anything like that for people who want to be creators of comedy, of content that you see in the future? Just anything?
Yeah. Just do it. And do it and do it. You get, like Malcolm Gladwell says, you got to get your 10,000 hours in. There's nothing that keeps you, especially in a time with all these mediums of medii, to be, if you want to be a comedian, get on and do comedy anywhere you can. If you want to write, you have to write. You have to write, you know. Nobody's going to just ask you to write something. You have to just write and write and write. You better love it, or you're not cut out for it. If you go do stand-up and bomb, and all you want to do is go back the next night, then you're a stand-up. But you've just got to keep doing it. Don't worry about people, about getting seen, or an agent coming or anything. You're not ready. When you're ready, people will be talking about you. You can get seen too early, but you won't get seen too late. Life is long if you let it, unless you die early.
Hi. So I know that most people here probably enjoy you and your sister the most on the Sarah Silverman show, but for myself and at least the two people beside me, our favorite is you and your sister as two shrieking boy twins on Bob's Burgers, as Ollie and Andy. And what's it like working with the Bob's Burgers team? I know it's you guys have a bit of a smaller role in there, but I think you are my favorite characters. And is it good working with your sister again?
It's great. And Laura and I play Andy and Ollie on Bob's Burgers. They're twin boys. And we always work together, which is exciting because sometimes it's the only time I see her. And we get so excited to see each other. And they let us improv a lot, and the main characters, especially when we record with everybody, it's so fun to see people like Kristen Schaal and John Benjamin and Eugene Merman and Dan Mintz and see them improvising whole scenes and scripts becoming something slightly different because of it, and that it goes back to Lauren Bouchard is from Dr. Katz long ago, and John Benjamin and my sister Laura played John and Laura, or was it Ben and Laura on Dr. Katz, and that was highly improvisational, and it was the first time you really saw in animation this kind of conversational
small moments, you know. And Bob's Burgers is like that, and it's neat to see everybody. They're so good, and it's a lot of fun. And I see all, you know, it's John Hamm does it, and Jay Johnston, and Dave Herman, and it's just a whole lot of real fun people. Was there a second part to that question? Did I do it all?
I think it was just to be like enjoy working with your sister again, which
Oh,
you
yeah.
guys right at the start.
Yes.
So. Oh, which one are you? My friend just asked me that.
Do you have
Which one are
it?
you?
Guess?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I didn't ask
I'm
the
Ollie.
question.
I'm Ollie and she's Andy. Sorry.
We have time for just a couple more, so
Hi there. I wanted to ask you about I'm Effing Matt Damon. How did that come about? It was very catchy, very funny, and were you surprised when it went viral?
Yeah, well, that was kind of like the beginning of videos going viral. And we were surprised by it. And it's funny because after that, I would get calls like, we want to make a viral video with you. And you go, yeah, everybody wants a viral video. You can't just, there isn't a, you know, that's up to the audience part. It's not a... But how did it come about? It was it was going to be for Jimmy Kimmel's birthday. And for his birthday, the whole show was going to be a surprise to him. So everything was booked and done without him being involved, and he was very excited about that it was going to be a big surprise. And so we made it, and he didn't know about it. And it was, he was saying, I'm sorry, Matt Damon, we ran out of time, which he still says to this day, even though his show is much fancier. When he started saying it, it was a joke because he was like the biggest movie star, Matt Damon, he still is, and Jimmy's like lead guest at the time would be like the man with the longest arm hair. So to say, sorry, Matt Damon, we ran out of time was very funny. And now it's just kind of his, you know, his signature thing, and Matt Damon loves it. And so, so we had this idea. His cousin who writes on the show, Sal Icano, and a writer named Tony Barbieri had this notion of, I'm fucking Matt Damon, you know, or sorry, Jimmy, we ran out of time. I'm fucking your, you know, Matt Damon, I don't know. And then they thought of it as a song, and then we all met in Miami, which is where Matt was living, and I was on tour and went through Miami, so that's where we decided to do it. And we wrote the song and recorded it that night, and the next morning Matt came in. We had him from like 9 to noon or something because he had his daughter's Halloween pageant. And he learned his parts of the song, recorded it, and then we just had the run of this hotel to just shoot all the different things real quick. And that's how it came about. It was on the shelf for months and months because the writer's strikes happened. And so it ended up being just on the shelf, and about 5 months later, we aired it as part of his 5-year anniversary show, and he still had not seen it, and it was a surprise to him. And I remember we were both brushing our teeth before the show in his dressing room sink, and he said, "Oh, I'm so excited, I heard this is great." And I didn't have a perspective on it at all, and I didn't want him to be disappointed, and I was like, well, lower your expectations. It's like a funny video. But he was very thrilled with it. It was nice.
Okay.
Hi.
Hello.
So I'm really excited about I Smile Back. I'll definitely be in the rush line tomorrow super early. Hopefully I'll get a ticket. But I was just wondering about the kids in the movie. Like, did you meet with them before you started filming so they were comfortable with you, or how did that come about?
I met them when they auditioned, and they were all delicious. I love kids. I'm starved for them. I just don't have a life that is conducive for them, sadly. But we spent time together. There's a lot of time on a movie set, and we had a lot of good times. Shane, the girl, is just a firecracker, and she improvised probably my favorite part of the movie, and she was just so present, and And I don't think she's aware that it's acting. She was just there, you know. And the boy who played my son is just a real actor, and he's going to be one of those Ron Howard kids who's just, because he just is, there's never a bored moment, you know? I mean, my sister says to her kids, only boring people get bored, and this kid is not boring. He's so fascinated by every part of filmmaking, which is so lovely to see in a kid, you know? You don't feel sorry for them being child actors, you know, because they're meant for this. He wants to know every part of everything, you know?
Okay, who's got a really good last question? Because this has to be the last
So
question.
much pressure.
It's a lot of pressure.
Headband?
I have a microphone.
Okay.
So, hi, I'm Alex. I'm a comedian. I don't get paid or I'm famous or anything, but I still do it, so hooray. But my question is, what was the worst time that you bombed and how did you recover?
Oh.
And how long did it take for you to cover?
Oh, God, I have myriad worst times that I bombed, and I used that word correctly. God, there's something called prom shows, and you're gonna get to know what those are soon. And they are shows that prom kids, that are private shows for prom kids, and they're after their prom, so they're shows at midnight, 2 a.m., 4 a.m., and they're the worst, drunkest, awful, makes you not excited about the future of America at all people. They're terrible people. They're probably good people, and they are their worst selves. And I wasn't a strong comedian, and I was not too much older than them, and they just, boy, the worst thing when you bomb is this sound that someone always knows to do in the back of the room. And it's so quiet you hear the whole thing. I've heard, you know, people yell out at me, and I remember I was just very stoically doing my time, even though the MC was like, anytime, you know, standing on the side, and I got off stage and I just sobbed into the manager, Lucian Holt's arms, and he was very nice, and he still booked me after that, but yeah, I went back right away. But I never wanted to do these prom shows. It wasn't worth the extra money. It was awful. But, you know, and it really gave me a very maybe unhealthy fear of drunk people. And I'm surrounded by them. You know, I say, like, with this role, I had a lot to draw on from depression, but I've never suffered from addiction, but I'm a comedian, so I'm literally surrounded by it. And yeah, it's unpleasant. But if you keep coming back, that means that you are cut out for this. You're supposed to do it. And you know, I too was a comedian that no one heard of, that didn't make money from doing it. Every comic was. So you're right on track.
Did you do it?
Thanks so much, everybody, for coming, and thank you, Sarah Silverman. We're so glad you exist. Thank you.